to build and please share this information out because today's topic is going to be something that's very, very extremely important as we're going to be talking about raising social awareness and responsibility. So before I get started, like I said, I'd just like to encourage you to please share this video. I'm going to ask that you feel free to be honest and open and dive into the conversation that's going to be held. And I'll get started promptly in about 30 seconds. So we want to give an opportunity for Facebook to help us build the audience. Hope everybody's having a fantastic day. Please feel free to comment as to how things are going in your area. Let's see here. We got Shandon, Stephen, Lisa. Good to have you guys on. So I was hoping that I'd be able to monitor this. Okay, there it goes. All right. As Stephen said, don't do it. What do you mean, don't do it? It's got to be done. Got to be done. All right. So, again, I want to thank everybody for taking the time out of their busy Tuesday afternoon to hear some things that are on my mind that are important. And I'm going to be honest with you. I'm going to go ahead and get started with this. I'm going to be real honest. This is something that I find is outside of what I consider my comfort zone. Talking about difficult social issues in a public setting and so forth. And the reason I'm doing this today is because a couple of years ago, I started a program that I didn't give its name till a year ago called A Whole New Me. Now, let me back you up, because in becoming a whole new me, what I noticed is that I needed to step up into my complete authentic self in my life. And so over the last couple of years, I have grown in so many different areas in my personal life. And so a year ago, the name of the program got started as A Whole New Me because it was simply focused on my weight release program. Well, today, this is not what this conversation is about remotely, but that's what it started as. And I identified and realized that for people to become a whole new them, or whatever aspect in their life they're making transformation, for me, it was health. And so I had to identify what were the areas that were preventing my health. I realized it was relationship, business, finance, and then health. And so that's where my focus has become with the whole new me, because I realized that I wasn't unique. It affects everyone the exact same way, but in just different ways for their particular life. So one of the pieces that I'm going to focus on today with the whole new me is the relationship piece. And the relationship piece is, I'm just going to dive into it like this. A lot of times we think about it just male-female or male-male or female-female, whatever your personal life's relationship is when it comes to your life partner or better half. But that's not even what I'm talking about today. What I want to focus on is our relationship within society, in our culture, together as fellow humans. A few weeks ago, with the NFL season that started, an NFL player took a personal stance, and he chose not to stand and sing the national or participate in the national anthem. That was his choice, and I'm not here to say that was right or wrong, but he did that for a particular reason. Over the weeks, I started noticing things on my Facebook feed with inside of my friends, and I started seeing different comments and so forth. Now, before I go further, let me warn you about this. I'm going to be raw and authentic today. Now, I'm not going to be rude and belligerent by any stretch of the imagination, or the purpose of this is to point fingers. But this is a conversation. Unfortunately, with Facebook Live, you're hearing me. But I'm monitoring comments as much as I can that are right here on my computer screen. So I encourage you to comment, because I want to hear from you, and then I'll address it as we move forward. I want this forum to be one of respect, because we could have varying opinions and so forth. At the end of the day, you may choose not to be my Facebook friend. I won't be offended, by no means. And I could choose not to be connected on Facebook with you also, and that's okay. We have those options. But the point of this, as we get into discussing this situation that's going on around the world, my initial question that I'm going to ask you is, when that NFL player did what he did, what were your reactions? And not the reactions of what it was that he did. I'm more so am interested in, what were your reactions to why he said he was doing what he was doing? Because that's so important, because just Friday, and this was real close to home for me, a African-American man was shot and killed by a police officer. Now, I should not have to do this, but I do want to make sure that you do understand, by no means am I here to try a case, say what should or should not have been done, nor am I bringing any disrespect to law enforcement, because I have personal friends I golf with that when something happens, I'm messaging them, hey, are you okay? Just had a friend on Facebook called off for her final time. So I respect and love what law enforcement does for us. And that's what our tax dollars provide and pay for. So we want to make sure that's out the way, because that's not the point. However, the point is that last Friday, a gentleman was killed, died. The video was released yesterday. The public got to see it. Now, I'll ask you, if you've gotten a chance to see that video, because it went all over social media, what were your thoughts and feelings? How did you feel about what happened? Now, let me give you some reactions that I happened to notice that disturbed me. I started seeing immediately in the news coverage, when I saw the report Sunday, there was an article about this gentleman's prior arrest in 1996. And then I posted yesterday, and then there were comments about no one has taken into account his criminal record or his past and so forth, and when cops roll up on the scene. Now, I'm not here to say any of that is true or not. I don't know what cops do when they roll up on a scene. My point in asking this question to everyone is, what were your feelings when you see this situation in America today with black men being shot and gunned down in the streets by law enforcement? And I only ask that question because I'm asking people to, just like I'm asking myself, to take a deep, hard look into ourself first as to how we're reacting. So I hear people say, well, if he had to listen to the police, and I've heard this on other shootings also. Well, there have been shootings where we had a gentleman in Miami, I think it was Miami, that was caring for a autistic or a special needs student that was just shot. And he asked the question, why did you shoot me? And the officer said, I don't know. For those that are not African American, it may be difficult to understand how those that are African American feel and the nervousness that we have as we go about in life. Just like any women that are watching this, and I know we do have some women, I can never understand, I will never understand what it's like to have a menstrual cycle. I never will. So with that being said, the fact that all I want people to just acknowledge and understand is, do we have a problem in our country? Yes, we do. And those of us that are on different sides of whatever it is, can we agree that, man, maybe it's time that we just step back and just open up our hearts and start listening to one another to see where we can assist one another? And so I'm going to just pause for a second because I see a lot of comments coming in. I appreciate it very much. And I hope I can kind of scroll through these while this is going on. And I also want to thank Dr. Eric Hollis for asking me to do a video. Actually, he messaged me this morning to do a video because I'm from Tulsa and this event happened in Tulsa. And I said, tune in at 1:30. I'm already on it. And he is going to be conducting here in the Tampa area a research study. And if you want to be a part of that research study, go to his website, drerichhollis.com, and send him an email. Because this whole situation with race and all of that, my friends, do you agree that it's time to not tiptoe around it? I know, because honestly, I did. I was the kind of person that didn't want to rock the boat or anything like that. But you know what? Over the last few weeks, I've had this disturbance in my soul that has been a distraction from my work. And when work is distracting, resources don't come in. And this is not about money, but it affected me personally. So if it affected me, it may have affected you personally too. And Lisa Demi is another personal friend of mine, Caucasian woman. And I like her comment. She says, I can't understand it because I'll never be in your shoes. It must be a helpless and scary feeling. It actually is. And if you talk to other people and just listen to people, it can be scary. You know, when you get pulled over, and here's the training that goes on in our community. We are trained, say, look, you need to come back home. And so when the cop pulls you over, put your hands on the wheel and just sit there. Okay, that may be true, and that's what we need to do because we need to be able to make it back home. But do other people have to do that? No. You know, the video was really disturbing in the video yesterday, the helicopter view. If you have not seen that video, I'm not encouraging you to go watch it. It is disturbing, but I am saying, because some people have chosen not to. But the helicopter, one of the people in the helicopter, could have been the cameraman or the pilot, don't know who it was, don't care. The comment was made and recorded. It said, that's a big bad dude. Now, how can you make an assertion that that's a big bad dude just from flying in the air? I can't help it. I've been a big dude all my life. Since 6 years old, I've been overweight. Been fighting this whole thing. I would hate for someone to assume that just because I'm a big dude, I'm going to be rough and violent. So I just have to say to my fellow African-American brothers that, okay, if that's the assumption or the perception that people get, we can't necessarily, I'm not saying go lose weight just so that you can stay alive. For that reason, lose weight so you don't die from heart attacks and diabetes. Yeah, that's a great reason. But we can't go and just change everything. However, you know, as we all look into our hearts and how we treat each other, I guess my message today is, you know, do we have love? Are we showing love? And so I see a lot of comments that are saying, education. And that's, I didn't want to get on this post today and just rant about a problem. Yeah, I do want to say, look, what were your feelings? And Stephen, I see your comment there. I respect you to tackle this and hold your head above the wall. You know, Here's a gentleman that's doesn't even live in our country, but I'm sure the rest of the world, and I'm curious, you can give me feedback, Stephen, as to how the world looks at what is going on in our culture inside this United States. And Raphael said he's dealt with big dude issues. Yeah, we can't help it that we're big fellas. But the point of this is that, can we look inside of ourselves and just look at each other and say, you know what? As Shannon Sharp says on the show, is a talk show, I forget the name. Doesn't matter. But he's like, you can't tell my religion. You can't tell my orientation. You can't tell my political views. But all we know is we can just look at each other and we can just tell what each other is based on our skin tone. Okay? That may be true. But that's part of the problem. If we just make assumptions based on skin tone, is that even cool? So what can we do? Even though I may be black, someone else is white. Man, can I just take time to get to know each person and know what their culture is all about? Because we're all come from different cultures, and that's cool, but that's what makes up this country. One of the things that I see, until change is really in effect, Carolyn, I see your comment, and that's exactly where I was about to go to. We must get educated on laws, rights, finance to better fight with the real power and not just words and emotions. This was not about getting on and showing emotions and so forth, but it is emotional and it's very touching. But you're absolutely right. We must educate ourselves, and it starts with home. And I know there's a disparity within inside. I mean, there is oppression. And there's disparity within inside of the communities. I just found out some eerie things about what has happened in the city that I live in St. Petersburg, how dollars were taken out of that were earmarked for certain community development inside the inner city in the more African American areas to put into other parts of the city, and some things that has to do with the pier and some other, I'm not here for, it's not a political conversation for that, but we see it happen over and over in different cities. I mean, it goes back to Tulsa, Oklahoma, back in the race riots of the Black Wall Street area, where you had thriving communities that were destroyed. And then that trickle down effect has not even been rebuilt in Tulsa. And I'm from there, and I wasn't there when the race riot happened, but that thriving community does not exist. I come here to St. Petersburg and I see the same thing over in the 22nd Street, 22nd Avenue South area. Once used to be thriving communities that highways gone through, other things have developed, and a displacement. Okay? So every community that I've noticed that has the poor area is called, they have two street names that are very common: Greenwood and Martin Luther King. We know a problem is systemic and it exists in this country. We cannot escape it. Okay, Crystal said it happens in Tampa too. So education, as Dr. Hollis says, is the new currency for the 21st century. And this education that we have to really embrace is starting to understand this game of capitalism. And I'm going to speak directly to African Americans at the moment, but capitalism affects each and every one of us because we live in a capitalistic country. So Lisa says, I think we need to get at each other's back. It's not up to gays to protect gays or African Americans to protect African Americans or Muslims to protect Muslims. It's up to humans to protect humans. Couldn't have said it any better. How can we look out and protect each other? Again, if you're the kind of person that got upset about what Colin did, And this conversation today is not about disrespecting anyone that has served the country, because we have military people that are on this, in this feed right now, who understand where I'm coming from. Has nothing to do with disrespecting any of that. I mean, there's been several, particularly in African Americans. I mean, there's great books that have come out, particularly the Double V campaign, which is about how African Americans went and fought abroad, but then yet come back home and had to fight for their equalities because they had to ride on the back of the trains where German POWs were riding in front of them. I mean, if we really study history, we know all of that stuff happened. So this is not about disrespecting the military or anything like that. It's just simply understanding that we do have this problem. Let's not keep talking about it, but let's take action to do something about it. And so looking at the problem, if you were one of those individuals that got upset about why Colin knelt down, and you thought the problem was focused on the flag and the military and all that, you missed the entire point. What happened to Terrence Crutcher is an example of why Colin took a knee. Now, I'm not here to promote that he should be taking a knee or not taking a knee. That's in everybody's First Amendment right. But the point of what he is doing is introducing the conversation so that we can become aware. If we are glad to talk about the conversation and work together cohesively to create a stand where we not only need African Americans standing up and saying we want justice, we need those of non-African American heritage, whether you're white, Indian, or anything else, because there have been atrocities in this country to others. Matter of fact, there's a pipeline issue going on that's affecting Native Americans. Okay? So this is an opportunity to understand what the real issue is. And if you're not disturbed by a person that's holding their hands up, whether they're walking away from a cop or not, walking away up against a vehicle, and the next thing you know, according to the AP report in Tulsa that came out, I received a copy of the AP report today, said that, and I will read it verbatim. I'm going to pull this up. The AP in Tulsa first said, an attorney for a white Oklahoma police officer who fatally shot an unarmed black man has said that the man, this is what was said, the man ignored officers' commands and was reaching through a window of his SUV when he was killed. But police video from the incident Friday shows 40-year-old Terrence Crutcher walking away from the officers toward his SUV with his hands up when one officer shocks him with his stun gun or tased him, and he falls to the ground. He is then shot and killed. Police were called to the scene to respond to a report of a stalled vehicle. If this report is true, we're talking about someone that was stunned and then shot on the ground. Better way of saying that is murdered, or the word escapes me, but that's pretty sad. So if watching that video does not make you disturbed that a life was lost, executed. Thank you. That's the word I was looking for. He was executed. If watching that doesn't disturb you, but yet excuses or rationale pops up into your mind, that's what I'm here today asking, whether you're white, black, because there are black people that aren't on the same page with everything. And I'm not saying there is a particular page to be on. It's just that people will look at something and they'll say, well, if he wasn't walking from the cops, or if he didn't not disobey the cops, when is disobeying a cop the license to kill someone? And now, I don't want to take the presumption that I understand what it's like to be a law enforcement officer. Please understand that, as I've already addressed. But it's not a license to kill someone. I mean, it was 4 officers. What's the possibility of just tackling someone? 4 people. Okay? You know, let's talk about, what would you have done? I'm just curious what you might have done. Just, but again, we're not here to try the case. It's just sometimes the emotional thoughts that come to our minds. So there's a good question that's asked there. Thank you for asking that question. Is what kind of education? I think I heard, you're absolutely right, Lisa. Not all cops are bad. And we're talking about just a few that are creating these national incidences that create the fear. So again, I have friends that I go out and play golf with. I appreciate that. I just wanted, real curious. Andrea Parker asked a great question. She says, what type of education do people think is needed to help this problem? So that's a great question to chime in on. Education on what? And directed at who? And what do you do when people do not want to be educated? Those are great questions, powerful questions. Thank you very much, Andrea, for asking those questions. So, Joe said, yeah, and this is where, again, this is where the question always comes up, is like, why we see, and again, social media, television, we do have to understand that so much is pushed out there to create dissension, in my personal opinion. So yes, there are things we get to see. However, we hear about the young man that went in and shot the 9 people in Carolina, in Charleston. They arrested him. The report is, took him to Burger King, got him something to eat, and he didn't die. There was another report of a gentleman that was firing shot at police officers. They shot him. He wasn't black. And he laid in the park for 10, 15 minutes, but they didn't approach him because the gun was still in his possession, but they didn't shoot him. But then there's other unarmed men that were walking with their hands up that the magazines were emptied on. So we have this unfairness that's going on out there. So what I would like to propose, and for folks to start thinking about, is what's the responsibility we can take? And I'm talking in the African American community. What can we do personally within our homes? Not an anti-white agenda, not an anti-cop agenda or anything like that. But how can we start with inside the home? And then what's the economical? Because I like the comments, disobedience isn't worthy of death. And for the people who believe it should be, when will our non-melon individuals be subjected to the same punishments? I hope never. I hope we stop being punished. Absolutely. But one of the problems that I look at is a lot of this violence happens in low socioeconomic areas or depressed areas. Whether that's by design, that's pushing someone's agenda, that's trying to make the neighborhoods poorer and poorer. We've got to fight to make our neighborhoods smarter and more intelligent, more financially literate, and financially stronger. Okay? If people want to look at a person's history and a background because they sold drugs and different things, that goes back to, oftentimes, this is not an excuse, but it's about survival, and people will do what it takes. So then what can we do to start educating each other and taking more financial responsibility? So I just wanted to just share some thoughts with you. Again, the purpose of what I have started with the Whole New Me started with myself. And it started about making personal changes within inside of myself. And stepping out, doing what I'm doing today is something that you wouldn't have seen me do this a year ago. But no longer am I going to be afraid of others being offended, because if you know me, I'm not an offensive person. I'm just going to start presenting the truth. And you're going to see things on Facebook that's not about division. It's just about becoming more aware. If you notice the hashtags that I put in the post, these are some that we can start using. Social change starts with me. Let's take personal responsibility for making changes. Hashtag I love my fellow man. Hashtag let's work together. There are great opportunities. And Dr. Eric Hollis is going to be taking this and furthering it a little bit further. I mean, what we're doing is ironic. This Tulsa thing came up, and it just was like, it was the straw that broke the camel's back for me. But I'm going to be supporting him in our local town hall. Dr. Hollis, you've got people on here that want your information, that would like to be a part of this. So this is already stepped outside of Tampa. So I encourage and thank everyone for their comments, for being able to get on and just share. Again, we're not here to point fingers at anyone, but we're looking for the people who are really serious about effecting change and working together. Gina says, until the people who make the laws are part of the majority actually acknowledge that there is a problem, nothing will ever change. I want to say something regarding that. You know, as I look at the NFL situation, and there have been a few players that have supported Colin, it's going to take players outside of the African American race. It's going to take others outside of the African American culture to stand up to say, you know what, enough is enough. And that's when we can get more, because blacks have been protesting. We've been protesting for years, back to civil rights days. We've been protesting. We've been saying that we're getting gunned down in the streets. I mean, if you saw the movie Straight Outta Compton, there was a song that came out, "Fuck the Police." You know, this is not something brand new. The conversation's been going on. So it's got to take more than just black folks talking about the killing. And I know there have been whites that have joined in, but we're talking about in positions of, number one, business owners, number two, positions of authority in legislation and so forth. We got to have more of that conversation. So I'm asking to increase our social awareness, raising the social awareness, but not just raising it, the responsibility. And that's what this whole conversation was titled, Raising Social Awareness and Responsibility to Our Fellow Humans. And it starts right here in this country. I mean, it's easy to look outside all the other countries that's got issues going on and so forth, but we have people homeless and starving right here. You know, I felt great the other day. It was I had bought some food that I shouldn't have bought, and I gave it to some homeless people. And it was only because it wasn't supposed to be on my diet. I mean, it was great food. Okay. My point is we got to start right here at home. Okay. I agree. Community education is needed, but citizens are not arbitrarily shooting each other who don't look like them. I think most citizens know enough that you can't kill other people without, and I can't see the full comment there, but thank you, Stephen. I appreciate that. We always got our international supporters. Yeah, you know, as much help that we can get, that's exactly what we need. Thank you, Lisa. Dr. Hollis says, if you're interested in participating in the research study, please go to drerichollis.com, send in an email, and connect with him on Facebook and watch his video. So, again, all of you that got on here, took the time out of your day to make your comments, I appreciate it very much. Thank you for allowing me to get some things off of my chest, and I'm going to continue to be more socially conscious and aware myself personally as I continue to grow a whole new me. Again, this is, we do want to focus on our health, focus on the journey, but we want to build relationships, and we can make better relationships in all areas of life. So support minority businesses. If there's a challenge that those minority businesses are having, what other ways can you heartfelt, from the heart, show support? Many of these businesses need funding resources. We understand what's going on in the banking and financial system. What can we do together to help these businesses? If they have a great business idea, can you help? Can you get in and be on a board? Can you be in and be an advisor? I'm not saying work for free, because we all deserve to be paid for our value. But can you create a joint venture to say, okay, I believe in what you're doing. Let's get that going, and let's share some of the pot on the back end. Or how can you create front end money so that everybody can eat? I mean, these are things that are just real. African Americans have been a part of some of the greatest inventions. The minds are awesome, but there have been powers that work against. Many can say we all have equal opportunity. That is not true. So, but there are things that we all can take personal responsibility, and to read more and to study more and to make sure our personal credit is where it can be. Because, I mean, there are things that can be done, but it is what it is today. And moving forward, what is it can we do to try to reach out and help someone else? Pull up, push someone up, push them over the wall, whatever it takes. Please, as I opened up, let's look into our hearts, deep into each of our hearts, and see what it is that we can do personally. And and not just looking to see what we can do, write it down, take some notes, and then pick out someone that says, you know what? I love what you're doing in your business. I see that you can tweak this. Are you open? Ask that question first. Are you open to help? And if they say yes, say, I want to help. Let's lock arms and let's start moving forward. Move this conversation forward. There's so much that can be done. Let's not wait for an election and depend on a president to make the changes. Folks, we've been waiting on that in all cultures for as long as the election process has been going on. We know what that's about. But each of us supporting each other's business and will help those other businesses. You're right, Lisa. Thank you so much. So I'm going to conclude with this. There have been some powerful people. There are leaders that are on this call. Read through the comments. Look at the comments that others have said. There are those that want to be helped, and there are those that want to help. And there are those that want to be a part of making change. Let's form relationships, and let's really create dialogue. Let's get into an open room. Dr. Hollis is going to make this possible where we can get into a big open room. I'll be using more technology like this so that others can chime in. I won't just use Facebook Live where you're listening to me and I'm reading your comments. So I'll do some hangouts to where we can get more people on and we can talk to bigger audiences as well. So on behalf of humanity, I'm Iamericlamar. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you at our next broadcast.